Here we are again with another doodle with my boy Kyle. I'm Matt, and we are here, and we're going to talk about pyramids. Ooh. This is another segment of We May Get Canceled. We may get canceled. We don't know. We may figure some stuff out with these conspiracy theories, and they may cancel us. Just take us off the air. Just completely. You'll never hear from us again. We'll fade into the blackness. But hey, if you want to see more of us, please go follow us on the socials. Schnabel Studios, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Go listen to us on Spotify or Apple Music. Listen to us. See if you like us. Give us a shout. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe. One of the two. Because we're going to keep doing this. This is part 2. We already did part 1. I hope you listened to part 1 because we just go into a bunch of things. Now we're sticking on one topic. We're gonna try to just blow your brain out. Just have you thinking. Just have that little nugget in your head, that little splinter in your brain, like Morpheus tells Neo. That splinter in your brain you just can't get out. We're trying to do that to you in the nicest possible way, right, Kyle? The nicest possible.
100%. Boy, that is a heck of an intro. I'll tell you what, boy.
Hey, I gotta give my intro props to. I'm gonna give a shout out to another podcast, Spit and Chicklets.
Okay, go for it.
Spit and Chicklets is my hockey podcast produced by Barstool. R.A. Real Admiral, he does all the intros and he just kills it, especially when they have a guest. He in maybe 20 seconds lists off all the accolades of one of like Wayne Gretzky, Jaromir Jagr, like all the top greats, and they have a crap ton of accolades, and he just says them all in like 10 to 20 seconds, and it blows my mind every time. So I'm trying to be at that level, and that's a hard level. I'm probably like right here. I'm trying to get to RA status. So shout out to RA, shout out to my Spit and Chiclet guys. Those guys make me happy all the time. So if you like hockey and you like hockey bros, Canadian guys just shooting the shit, go listen to that. But we're here to talk about pyramids, Kyle. We're here to talk about pyramids. Who built them? Who put them there? Why are there so many pyramids alike all over the world? Like I just told Kyle, I was just reading about the pyramids that are off the coast of Japan underwater that are exactly like the Aztec pyramid and the ziggurats in modern day Iraq, or would be Babylonian times when they were built. What? Off the coast of Japan? Underwater?
So, okay. So, since
when you get into water, that makes me sorry, just to cut you off. But whenever we talk about water and we're talking about pyramids underwater, I'm getting that Atlantis tickle. Hey,
bro.
We're
gonna go there. We're gonna get there.
We're gonna get there, but we got to stick with the pyramids.
One step at a time. With the pyramid. Since you're talking about the similarities, somewhere on the internet, I'll just start saying that because I kind of like the way that rolls off my tongue. Somewhere off the internet. You love it, bet.
God, it's like silk. Keep saying it. Just keep going.
You know what I'm saying? Somewhere off the internet, I seen where they were talking about how it was comparing all the shapes, and then with all the cross analysis with all of the like the time periods. Now, all the time periods line up together, right? And you see how most of them have the same design. All of them have the same design. It's kind of almost like they had a uniform way of making these ziggurats or these pyramids, right? So for what I personally where I've seen, somewhere off the internet, how the pyramids weren't tombs. They were energy centers.
Okay.
So here I'm a deep dive into another conspiracy theory just so I can explain the one I just said.
Okay.
Conspiracy theory. At one point, somewhere off the internet, I seen there was free energy. Nikola Tesla had the formula
Yep.
to free energy.
Free energy. Yep.
Free energy. Okay, so oh God, I hate to jump into I hate jumping into rabbit holes just so I can explain a rabbit hole.
But just connect them. Just connect them at
Okay,
the
I'm
end.
gonna
But
connect
we're
it
here
all.
for that. We're
All
here
right,
for that.
bet. So
Do
we're gonna go back to the pyramids. Okay, so I got to round back to the pyramids. That's all I have to do. So let's jump down another rabbit hole. Talking about free energy, right? So you know how, because I always said this to my self and to my mom, right? I was like, think about how all of those old Victoria buildings from way back in the day that have all those beautiful structures, you know, like all those old churches with the stained glass that
Yep.
kind of look with those cool shapes in them,
Yeah, the
and like how
medieval,
they
Victorian looking,
right the ones
that
that they
Gothic, the
cannot.
Gothic shape, you know?
Yes, the Gothic. Let's go with Gothic. Yes, the Gothic shape. Right? How can they? How can we have? How can we be at basically the height of technology if we can't even recreate those? How come we could never recreate those? So I always ask my mom, like, yo, why? I love the architecture from back in the day. How could they get so much precision into that compared to what we do now? My mom is just like, I'm gonna be real with you, man. I don't know. Maybe they had something back then that we don't got now. And that's just something. Like normally she would have normally she would smirk like she knew the answer. This time I really feel like she didn't know the answer. So she would just be like, man, I don't know, bro. Like,
But she believed in it. She believed in it enough to say it.
Believed in it enough, right?
She knows that
so,
they did have the technology back then.
I really
we
think
don't have it
that,
now. She just doesn't know
so,
why.
let me explain
we don't have that.
rabbit hole
Why
we
don't
just
we
jumped.
have?
Right.
Why do we keep doing these rectangular square boxes that we do now? Now, you know, I'll be normal, Matt, for a minute. You know, that could be cost efficient. You know, it's easier to build a bunch of those at once instead of these beautiful architectures, which did take a long time. You know, these things weren't built in a day. So you have that. But when you look at the precision that is being done and the technology we have now to recreate that precision, cost kind of goes out the window for me, where why don't we just do that? Like, it's more like I follow a Twitter account that just shows old architecture. That's all it's about. And the guy's just like, why don't we have this anymore? Why? And it's all over the place. It's here in America. It's over in England. It's in Rome. It's in China. It's everywhere. And he's just bothered that no one's doing this anymore. And when I think about, when I think, you know, bringing it back to the pyramids, yes, the pyramids definitely weren't built in a day. But I can't see a dozen people, you know, they say that the slaves, the Jewish slaves of Egypt built those for, you know, of Giza. There's no way the stones are so big and heavy that how can you do that with humans? You know, those stones, you would need over 1,000 humans pulling them and placing them. And even that, and the precision of it. And it was only by eye. The way that they explain it is that these architects in Egypt were doing it by eye, where we can't build these square structures without the technology we have right now for balance.
Now, have you ever looked into the actual, like the mathematics of the pyramids?
Yes, it's insane.
And you see how it's
the
way
angles
too accurate.
Yeah, the angles and everything. And I'm going to bring something in. I'm going to bring something in for you.
Come on. Let's go. Let's jump down these rabbit holes, man.
They're so accurate that they match up with star patterns in the sky.
Come on now. Keep talking. Talk to me nice.
I think the pyramids are exactly in line with Orion's belt.
Yes, they are.
They're exactly aligned to the T.
Now
you can measure it, and the stars of Orion are literally right over
Come
these
on.
pyramids.
Then if
And
you take an aerial shot of all the pyramids and you zoom out, what does it look like? A motherboard.
yep, it looks
Or
like
a
a motherboard.
computer. So then that also ties into another theory you've probably heard of, that we live in a simulation.
Ooh, okay.
And
I haven't heard that one.
You haven't heard the simulation theory?
Yeah, so, well, I know the simulation theory
Yeah.
in
Basically,
general,
the simulation theory just put into human context.
but put into human. Oh, okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's the same thing. It's almost kind of like Neo. It's almost kind of like the Matrix, legit.
Yeah.
Like we live in the Matrix, like that whole deal. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell our viewers we're not going to turn into Andrew Tate. I promise you we will not be Andrew Tate.
Oh, no, not at all.
That guy is a psychopath.
No,
that guy, the way that
bro.
he says the Matrix makes no sense whatsoever. When you think about what the theories of the Matrix is and what he says on his podcast or in public or whatever, it just makes no sense. Like, it's more of a fictional story that he's creating about the Matrix. Like, he's pretty much, in some of the things that he says, it's like he's rewording the things that they said in the movie. So, like, it makes no sense to me in a sense, because that was just, a sci-fi fictional movie that is. But when you think of the Matrix theory, it's a lot deeper and a lot more convoluted than anything that the movie touched. The movie was more about civilization and how they're dealing with it. It's not about the theory that we're in a computer simulation. It's more about how humans are supposed to react to finding out we're in a computer simulation. Yeah, like they could have went 10 times deeper in that movie than they did. They just scraped the surface. And I feel like Andrew Tate is just pulling lines from that movie and construing them into his own, like, weird reality that he thinks he's in. It just doesn't make sense. But back to the pyramids. Yes, my thing about the pyramids is that they're aligned with all of the stars. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But you have right in front of this, what do you have right in front of the pyramids of Giza?
The Sphinx?
Yes.
Talking about the Sphinx?
Yeah.
Okay.
The Sphinx, where no archaeologist or explorer is allowed to go beneath.
Mm-hmm.
They sealed it all off.
Come on.
And they theorize that the Sphinx is connected to these pyramids.
Yes,
and
they are.
Deep underneath, that there were high-tech railways underneath it, that there was a lab underneath, there was all this technological innovation in there.
Bring it full
and
circle.
Then that is why we're connected to those stars, because they think those stars definitely had some civilization that came here, and it was a map to get there and back. And underneath was their civilization. They just stayed here, and then they just one day left. And this is their star path to get back to home, wherever home is. But it's somewhere near the stars. Now, if you look at the stars, and we've looked at those areas of over by Orion's belt, they're just stars. They just have, they're not planets. Because if you think in the astronomy way, when you look at stars that are twinkling are clouds of energy and everything. Stars that aren't twinkling are actual planets. Like, if you see Mars in the sky, it's not going to twinkle. But if you look at Orion's belt, it's twinkling. But that could mean that millions of years ago, there was a cluster of planets there, and that star imploded. But that's also thousands and millions of years, because we're looking at stars that are already dead. Like, they're gone. We're just seeing the light that's just being put at us. The way that it was explained to me is that we're looking at stars that are already dead. We're just getting the light from them now. Now, they were seeing Orion back in the Egyptian time. So what was going on before Egyptian time?
I personally feel like I feel like there was multiple advanced civilizations.
Yep.
Okay. Since we're talking about free energy and pyramids, right? I'm going to put us all together. Right. And then, so, you know how we jumped into that rabbit hole talking about Nikola Tesla and free energy. Now, remember how we learned about the World Fair as kids, where they had these magnificent structures where they, quote unquote, had to burn them all down very quickly, right? To show how great America was, right? I personally feel like what happened was there was an advanced civilization here. Like, I want to say, like in Europe, like I want to say really recently. And when we come talking, like, I want to say, I'll jump into another theory before I talk about this theory. I think the history we know is a little edited.
Oh yeah, it's skewed for sure.
I think there's a lot of stuff omitted. Now, since we talked about that, I think about this. Have you ever heard about the theory about Tartaria?
Yes.
Since we're talking about free energy, okay. So you've seen how, like, back when those old, like, 1900s, where they had all of those really, really high-tech stuff, and we're like, wow, we can't have that now, kind of deal. So I really feel like the quote unquote what they did with the World Fair was just a front, was just a lie from history of how they burnt down Tartaria and created the civilization that we know now. Which to me would explain, because I ain't gonna get that deep. I ain't gonna get that deep yet. We ain't gonna get that deep yet. Because there's some stuff that I'll tell you off air. There's some stuff that I heard that it piqued my interest, but I want to keep looking at it. But since we're talking about Tartaria, but the reason why we have all these nice Gothic structures that's still here is because of Tartaria. Right? And Tartaria was this nice civilization, this whole massive civilization that was advanced. They had all these technological advances. One of the technological advances was they had free energy because of the way their buildings were structured. Because I want to say it essentially aligned with something with nature to where it harnessed free energy. And it was something with, I want to say, mercury, something to do with
I think it was like mercury and like it was some metal that they fused with solar energy that produced something that was so pure that they didn't need to create. It created its own electricity. It did all of that.
Yeah, and I feel like what happened was it got taken over by whomever, whatever entity, and they realized, hey, I could influence more society and get more resources from society if I make them give me pay for this.
Right.
I feel like that wasn't like the initial plan, but like that went down the line. But just pulling it all full circle with free energy. But I think that the pyramids was like the precursor to what Tartaria was. So since we're talking about that, and from earlier, since we're going to really circle all the way back, I feel like that is what Atlantis was.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
I believe that Atlantis was a civilization that we renamed. Humanity renamed them.
Okay.
And Atlantis was it could have been Tartaria, it could have been something else, and that we renamed it Atlantis, calling it the lost city of Atlantis. All that brings up the whole mystery of things. But they renamed it from something that was already named in history.
Kind of like the whole.
They did a bait and switch.
Yeah, like Frozen, like the Disney Frozen thing, like the Disney Frozen theory. Did you hear about that? That bait and switch?
Mhm.
Oh, that's smooth. That's smooth.
So that's what I think, because I think Atlantis was definitely there's enough proof from archaeologists, explorers, scientists that Atlantis was real. There was a
Mm-hmm.
real place. And I don't believe that a civilization like that just up and disappears. It goes into like the hollow earth theory,
Okay. Come
where
on, talk about it.
they probably discovered another ecosystem within our earth and they just went there. And because it was better living, it was better for their society, it was better for everything. And they just left the world above alone. And why? And that's what the bait and switch was okay, we can't really tell people that there's something inside our earth. We'll say that it's sunk into the world and everything. Because if you look at the only person in history that we know who talked about Atlantis was Pluto.
Mm-hmm.
And he described it as one of these magnificent, like huge, grandiose civilizations. And then he describes that it just up and disappeared. And he thinks it was the floods and it took it. I believe that the floods is the
Mm-hmm.
flood of people going inward.
Oh, so you think that's what happened with the mud flood or the quote unquote Noah's Ark flood? Because I think that's what the Noah's Ark flood was the mud, was the great mud flood. Because if you have you ever seen how like they're starting to unearth like all of our like old Capitol buildings have literally whole floors beneath them because they were
Yes.
skyscrapers at one point,
Yeah.
and that right there is another part of like the Tartaria argument for me because you'll see that and you're like, and then okay, from us being well, I will say I'm half. I'll say I'm a half New Jerseyan. For me
Mhm.
being a half New Jerseyan and you a full New Jerseyan, and it makes you start thinking about the architecture up there, and you're like, oh my god, that makes so much sense. Why they're so like think about how can you fit that many people on an island?
Mhm.
And so let's tie
It's
this into
crazy
modern
because
day. Go
like
ahead.
in modern era I went to Norway last year with my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
There are more people in Manhattan than there are in the whole country of Norway.
Jesus.
How is that possible?
Mm-hmm. How can how can an island take all of that infrastructure without sinking? And I know they're talking about how New York is finna sink.
Well, I just think I put that
I think that's
like Venice is sinking and
yeah.
New York is sinking. I say that because I do believe in global warming.
Okay.
I believe that with all the ice melting, that we're getting
Mm-hmm.
more and more and more water. So it's just going up.
Ooh.
Now, I'm going to make this full circle. All right. I'm going to
Come
make this
on.
full circle.
Keep full circling it.
If you have an advanced civilization like Tartaria, whatever you want to call it, Atlantis, Tartaria, and you have advanced technology, you have people who are very brilliant, who are smart, maybe they found this inner earth ecosystem down there where that wouldn't happen because majority of our world is water above.
Yeah.
What if they already saw that, hey, after a while that ice is all going to melt and the sea is going to rise? How are we going to sustain our humanity if that starts to happen? It's going to
Mm-hmm.
create too many problems. So let's
Right.
find a solution for our civilization right now. That solution may have been the inner earth.
Mm.
So they got out of
Mm.
Dodge because they predicted this. They saw it. They did the math. They were like, okay, over if we keep going and our civilization goes for millions and millions of years, by a certain point, we won't have a civilization because our world is going to flood.
Okay. I like that.
To
Look at us.
Look at us. Look at us. I
Look
love
at
that little clip of
I
Paul
do
Rudd
too.
on the Hot Wings challenge. It's like, look at
I
us.
do too.
Look at
Look at
us.
us. Look
Look
at
at
us.
us.
It's great.
We got to
Like
cut
that's
that
so
in.
cool though. Oh man, like if we could figure that out 100%. Um I'm just it's just cool thinking about it because it's like think about if we and then like it makes sense how you could cover up history, especially with the known book burnings that they've had. And then especially like when you look now in just modern day history and you see how people is demonizing being smart and doing your own information and doing your own research, finding your own information. Now it's like when things don't say a certain thing and all of a sudden it's misinformation, you
Yeah.
know? So like it's really, really crazy. And it makes sense how it would make sense that you could easily hide a civilization. Like, what's the best way to hide something in plain sight? Say, hey,
Yeah.
bro, that was a myth. An advanced society? You really think there was an advanced society before
How could there
us?
not? Because if you think about our planet's history in a science outlook,
Mm-hmm.
they date our planet what, millions and millions of years old, before we had written word, before we had anything. They say, our Earth was created. And what doesn't say that our Earth started to take its form with an atmosphere, with continents, with dirt, with water, with plant life, with everything? What is saying no to a a group of people finding our backwater planet
Mm-hmm.
and settling
Mm-hmm. Talk about it.
and creating monuments like these pyramids in South America, in Egypt, in present day Iraq, like what in India? What is telling you that those weren't created eons before we think they were actually created, and they were just
Mm-hmm.
inherited by the civilizations that we know today? Because
Mm.
you look at, let's take the Aztec pyramids. Let's take those.
Okay.
They're very advanced because those were built in a way that helped them tell time. They were telling time. And what doesn't say that something in that pyramid taught them that? They were one of the most
Okay.
advanced civilizations on this earth. They
True.
had they had plumbing before there was actual plumbing down there. That's how a lot of these tribes were killed off. Like in history, it's written, it's not a conspiracy theory. How they killed some tribes is that they poisoned their 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 water supply through their plumbing. That was it. You had chemical warfare before there was chemical warfare.
Mm-hmm.
So what is telling me no to that? These advanced civilizations had someone teaching them the way of life.
True.
You
That,
know, we had
mm.
we had that whole thing where, like, remember the 2012, because that's when the
Yep.
Aztec calendar ended.
Okay.
What if that wasn't the end of the world? What if that was another the society that the Aztecs, the not society, the people that the Aztec knew that helped them grow their empire? What is that
Mhm.
was the time that they need to leave the earth? By that time, that's like, come to our civilization. Come meet
Mm.
us off this world.
So, so what you're saying is that that's where the
Survive.
Mayans disappeared. That's where the
They
Mayans disappeared to was the inner Earth. Okay. So what happens if the Mayans and the Atlanteans were the same people, and we just have them by different names?
Yep.
And it's nice to crisscross stuff like that. You can make one myth, one fact, or quote unquote fact.
Well,
You know.
a lot of the myth of Atlantis aligns with a lot of these ancient civilized worlds, and you could say like, yeah, because that's how they created the myth, that's just how they do it. But it's it's down to like how they dressed, how they talked,
Mm-hmm.
how we think about Atlanteans and how they dressed and how they talked and how they did everything. It aligns with Aztec, it aligns with Egyptian, it aligns with Babylonian.
It's like almost like it was all one big civilization that had city
Yeah,
states, right?
that had city states that
Come
connected.
on.
So
Come
so
on.
let me talk to you about someone, all right, that
Talk
I
to me.
learned in Norway. Okay,
Talk to me.
a guy named Thor Heyerdahl. Hydro Heyerdahl. It's Heyerdhl.
Okay.
Okay, I went to his museum in Norway. It was in Oslo. This man, he's an adventurer, and he built a I don't even know how he built a papyrus boat. Okay,
Okay.
he sailed from Monaco to South America in a papyrus boat. He crossed the Atlantic and made it there. He proved that these ancient civilizations were able to talk to each other because that's what the Egyptians had at boats. They were papyrus boats.
Mm-hmm.
He proved that it's true that Egyptians could have known of the Aztec civilization, or even just the pre-Columbian civilization, and that they talked. Now, I'm thinking it's a couple thousands of years ago, back Egypt time, Aztecian time.
Okay.
Thinking about that. At that point, think about the Earth. The Earth is comparatively young to what it is now. Okay,
Yeah.
there's no disruption to the atmosphere. There's no global warming because we don't have coal and all of that polluting our air. We don't have as many extreme storm systems rolling through our oceans. It's more of a calmer time. How can you tell me that there wasn't let's say a water superhighway that, yes, it would take some time. Yeah, it took him, I think, a couple months to get over there with the papyrus boat. Maybe a couple weeks. I don't know. He, by proving that, he figured out a theory that there was trading of goods and information through these two ancient civilizations. Now, what can you tell me that these people were already thinking? Like, they were already thinking about the betterment of the planet. Like, they're not like they may have electricity, but that was pure power. That was pure energy.
Power.
It was pure energy. It wasn't construed in a lab. It's not sending gases into our ozone layer to destroy it.
Back then, technology was integrated into nature. Right now, what I think happened is people figured out. I think what happened was the people who tore
we are
down
in
the
a
old
rush.
world.
We're in a rush all the time. We need to get
I
places
think-
faster. I don't think back then they needed to get places faster. They were content with the time it took to get to certain places.
But that was because they was in line with nature.
Yeah.
You got to realize right now we're not in line with nature at all.
Oh no,
Like
they.
nobody in civilization is.
I feel like they went with the mantra of a tree grows when it wants to grow. We'll get there when we get there because we know we're going to get there, and we're smart enough to realize, okay, like even if there was a storm system, let's say there was a short storm system coming in, they realize how to handle that because a dude in like the 1900s did this. So someone in the early ages did this. And like you're saying, they were more in tune with nature. They could feel, they could see, they could hear, they could smell when something was brewing, a storm, a whirlpool, all these things.
Here, it's funny you say that. One thing I picked up when I was in the South that I didn't realize was a Southern thing till I got older. We can smell rain.
Yes, you can.
Yeah, like that's a Southern. I don't know if it's. I don't know if y'all do that.
I only know that because of my travels throughout America. Like if you're out in Colorado, you can smell rain coming.
Yeah, in the South you can smell the rain too, and
then because you don't have major cities everywhere. Like over here, you can kind of feel it coming. Like I get tricked out nowadays because I think our weather system's all fucked up right now. Like we keep getting these things. Controlled. All right, we'll go into another section. All right, because I'm totally want to hear about that, but let's keep on what we're doing here. All right.
Yeah, let's keep on with the free energy systems.
Folks, we could just go off on different tangents. We're trying to keep it singular here.
100%.
Now, I'm saying that our area where I'm from, like Northern Jersey, 30 minutes from New York City. It's probably the same if you're outside of, even, a little bit outside Atlanta, a little bit outside. Atlanta, these areas, you can't really smell the rain coming. But if you're out in them, like I was in Colorado, I was in Arizona, I was in Utah, you can smell that it's going to rain, and you look up and you look over and you can see storm clouds moving towards you. Like I was sitting on a family friend's deck. They live in Canyon City, Colorado, and they were up on the side of a mountain. I was sitting out on their back porch, and I was like, "Ooh, I think it's gonna rain. It's sunny as shit." My mom was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "I can smell it. I can feel it." She's like, "Oh, okay." And we look over to our right, and there's a storm system coming through. It never came to us, and I watched a storm system come across, lightning, thunder, everything, and it just passed us and just kept going. It never came this way. Never. It's like watching it on a radar. It was like watching it, like you have the above version in a radar. I had the front view of it moving across.
That's crazy.
And I feel like back in the day when we had pyramids and everything, they knew this. They saw this. There wasn't pollution in the air where you don't see it. You saw it, you smelt it, you felt it, you could hear it easier. We have so much noise pollution and light pollution now. You can't see shit anymore. Like I was down in Baltimore a couple of weeks ago, and we went to the planetarium, and the guy showed us the light pollution in Baltimore. And it's always a hue. Even in Baltimore, there's always going to be a hue of light. He said, let's go to Baltimore in the early 1800s, and it was pitch fucking black. Pitch black. So that was in the 1800s. Imagine all the way back.
Dog. Like, have you ever seen the solar punk? Like the solar punk style of like animation where it's like the technology is integrated into nature?
Yes. Yep.
I really feel like that's what the high technology societies was like, was that, where it's like, and I feel like what they were warning us of, the whole AI thing What I think that what they were warning us of is what's going on now, is where it's when you, I don't know what the word is, when you is it unintegrate or disintegrate? Which one? Which one is it?
Disintegrate.
Disintegrate. Okay. When you disintegrate technology from nature, right? You basically try to turn society into one big machine.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what the whole scare of AI was what we're dealing with now. Because if you think about this, right? Mm-hmm. If we want to let's just go into the 90s. Do we have more technology now and have more access to things now? Yes, we do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But don't we also have a lot less freedoms than we used to?
Yeah, we do. If you think about it, we do.
So if you're an advanced civilization,
and a lot of people will come after us because of that. A lot of people will come after us talking about all the history and all that. But if you think about early civilization, you had the freedom to do whatever the fuck you wanted. Like it was like free game at that time. And I'm not trying to get into gender roles and stuff back then. You were still free to do what you wanted on this planet.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like
it was if you like. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like,
no, you good. Go ahead.
The whole thing about it was even back then, you know, they had their religions, so it was just the law of the religion at that time. And if you went against it, you probably were shunned or something, but it doesn't mean you weren't allowed to go against it.
I honestly feel like it was one of those deals where, hey man, as long as you ain't destroying stuff and killing folk, you good out here. Because I feel like back then, I feel like a lot of the things we deal with now is a result of modern life. You know what I'm saying? And it's a result of people's ideas getting passed down and, you know what I'm saying, and contorted in different ways. But I feel like that back then they had a whole different morality code.
Oh yeah.
If you're more in line with nature, you're going to be really in line with nature. So you're probably not as stressed. You're probably nowhere near. You're definitely not trying to make a living. So that whole hustling for a dollar thing is gone. That virtually gets rid of crime outside of getting mad and killing somebody. Mm-hmm. Like that would honestly be the only crime, is literally outright killing somebody. And probably rape. But you know what I'm saying?
That wasn't even a thing.
That's probably not even a thing because sex isn't isn't a commodity like that. It's probably more of a sacred act that they look at it as like a religious act kind of deal. So it's more sacred rather than just a fun activity everybody thinks they're entitled to because they got genitals. So I really think it was just different. Just like, okay, with Avatar, right? Since we're talking about ancient civilizations, I really feel like the Earth was totally different. Like, I really feel like there were giant trees, and because I always look at it like,
we have the redwoods. You can't tell me that the redwoods only grew in California. Like, come on, think of the jungles down in South America. Their trees are almost as tall as redwoods, like, and probably as old.
Right? Like, okay, let's just take. Okay, I was having this discussion with one of my friends. Reason why I feel like with the whole Avatar thing, right? The whole Avatar, how they used to have. I personally think that like the Avatar movie is somewhat real. That the whole Earth ecosystem was a lot different because what I used to always think to myself, right, going back to my whole childhood as being in the Holiness Church, I used to always ask, how come back in the day people was living to 100, 200 years old, let's say 200, 300, 400 years old, and right now we can't live past 70, and we have more technology now than we had back then, quote unquote, right? Yeah. Right. So why are we dying quicker?
Yeah, I don't know. That brings up like, I don't know, like, didn't they say Moses lived to like 180 years old? Like, how does
Yeah.
that make sense? Like, I don't understand when back then the average age of dying was like 30 years old. Like, how did that dude live for so long? And now they're telling us that like the average age was that because they didn't have antibiotics, they didn't have the over the counter Tylenol for headaches. Like, like
Hmm.
I like when I think about it, it's like Nick Swartzman did a joke where he was like, "I wonder what it was like the guy who invented ice cream and figured out what brain freeze was." And he thought he was gonna die. And he was just like, he was just looking at it like, oh, it's so good. It's so, oh my God, tell my family I love them. I'm about to die. And like,
Oh
and
my
he's like, all right,
god.
I'm good. I'm good. Like, it's kind of in the same vein of like, what about like all of these things that we have now? Like, how did they deal with someone having a brain aneurysm or a heart attack? The things that just happen. Like, we, with all the technology we have, we can't predict if that's going to happen. We can't predict that. Like, you can live the healthiest lifestyle all you want, but you are still eligible to have a stroke. You're still eligible to get cancer. You're still eligible to have a heart attack. And it's like all these things that can happen to you. That it's not like that just started. That was definitely like a human thing, like our
Man,
genetics. Like, it's a human thing.
man. I was gonna go into a whole nother conspiracy, but we're gonna come back to that one point you just talked about. Talked about how we can live the healthiest life we want to in America and still have risk of cancer. We're
Yeah.
gonna touch that. We're gonna come back to that because I have a
Okay.
whole another rabbit hole that we can go down.
Mm.
But me and my friend me and my friend who's a Hebrew Israelite, and I asked him, I was like, how come back in Bible times, way back, they could live to 300-400 years old, 200-300-400 years old, and we can only live to 70? He was like, oh, because God put a curse on everybody, right? Cool. It's fine.
But why? Like,
Because
why?
because God's people was being disobedient, blah 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 blah. Yeah, hey bro.
Like,
Explain shit.
look, I don't get that stuff because to me it's like if God created us to be human and to be separate from his angels that he created, like, how did you not see that there was going to be flaws to that? Like, giving someone the autonomy to think on their own, to do whatever they want, to do all this, and it, like, that's where, like, I don't understand the whole talking of like these plagues and what God did, gave us a flood and all of that, and
Mm-hmm.
then sent messiahs like Moses and Jesus and Abraham and whoever else the fuck that he sent to give the word of God. And all that ended after the New Testament closed its book. Apparently that all ended and we're all fine to live our life. How in this era of living, with all the calamities we've had,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I'm not even talking about like medieval time, you had the plague and all of that stuff. Like, what about now? The horrors that have gone on in the modern world. Why
Mm-hmm.
hasn't that been dealt with? Because God could send someone down. God could give us another flood. God could, show up in a burning bush, or whoever he sends down to be in the burning bush to talk to someone and say, "Hey, you guys are fucking up. Get your act in line." And the whole thing about, well, Jesus is going to come back and he's going to save us all again. Like, there's been enough times in this planet where in this history where he probably could have seen it, because comparatively to our modern time and what we've done to each other as humans, doesn't even like equate to what was going on back then.
True.
To them, that like comparatively, back then they were jaywalking. Now we're murdering people. Like, it's like those guys were jaywalking and God got pissed off. Now we're murdering people and God's like, all right, cool, yeah, let's just let them go. I'll just let them. Yeah, survival of the fittest. I'm going with the Darwin thing. I'll just let them do their thing.
Like it's just crazy though, because then you're sitting there. I have another conspiracy theory about like God and all of that too, by the way. Like an alternative theory, but I'll tell you that off air. And then you can see if you want to talk about that or not, because it was so interesting. It was so
All right.
interesting. Because
All right.
just remind me about the God theory later.
All right. Let's circle back and let's go
Oh
back.
yeah, let's circle back. Yeah.
Let's
I'm
circle
just
back.
I'm just telling you that as like just
Yeah.
human to human. Like I'll just be honest with you. I just want to
Oh,
see
yeah.
your
I
reaction
love
when
it.
I tell you
I
that.
love it. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't
Oh
wait.
yeah. But let's circle back. But yeah, but that's what I was always just looking crazy about with the whole how we don't live as long as we used to.
Yeah, and it seems like even bringing it back to like Aztec and Egyptian and Babylonian time, they seem
Mm-hmm.
like they lived a lot longer
Yep.
and they had a better understanding, like we were talking about, of the way of nature, and that they embraced it instead of trying to figure out a way to overcome it
Yep.
like we do
True.
now. Like we do now. They embraced it. A storm comes in, they're not complaining, they're not saying, God's punishing us. They're saying, okay, our world has storms. let's let's deal with that in our own way to protect our people and not try to combat it, but let's just live through it. And it you see these structures that they built, they
Mm-hmm.
were ready for it.
Right.
But how were they ready for it? How did they figure out to be ready for it? You have we talked about the Babylonians and the ziggurats that they built, which is their temples.
Mm-hmm.
Those temples in today's standards, they didn't hold up. Like a lot of them are gone because they were made in a certain way that didn't combat what weather we're seeing now and the
Mm-hmm.
erosion that we're seeing now, because they weren't worried about that, because they knew they were just going to go with the flow. If something was destroyed, they would just build it back, but build it smarter, but in a
Mm-hmm.
way that it complements the earth and nature and everything with that. Now, when we talk about these temples and these pyramids, some of them, they say, they say the Egyptians happen first and the Aztecs happen second. That's how it is.
Okay.
That's how our timeline is. Like
Okay.
the Aztec Empire was established in like 1420 AD, and like the Egyptian, I'll do it by centuries. Like the Egyptian was the 14th century, and like the Mexicans, the Aztec, old Colombian was a little after that. That was it's it's funny to me that these were all built far away from each other and far
Mm-hmm.
away in time, and they mimic a way to stay in one place. Now, in my mind, the Babylonians were very high tech, and I think they got a little too cocky with that,
Okay.
and they didn't factor in the changing of the earth. I don't think they realized that we were gonna, because they were at the pinnacle of technology at that time. They were at the pinnacle of everything. They didn't think it was gonna advance any further.
Right.
And they also thought, even if they didn't think it was advancing any further, they thought their people, Babylon, was going to advance further. But
Mm-hmm.
apparently that was wiped off the map, and we don't know how.
They could have went to Inner Earth too, though. Like all the people, just like with the Bermuda Triangle, right? You know how they always say people go disappearing. I would not be surprised if there was like either like a portal or somewhere where you get caught in there and then boom, you're in a different place.
Dude, I told myself if I wasn't dating someone by 40 and I was successful, I was going to buy a boat And I was going to go into the Bermuda Triangle just to see what would happen. Like, I am dating someone and I love her, so I can't go do that. But I was like, in my mind, I was like, that would be a great way. Like, I would find a way to do it like the right way, since we have the technology, like tracking my boat through satellite, through something that's not on Earth, like trying to figure out a way that they can track me to a certain point where if I did go missing, they can figure out where I went missing. And look, it could have been that area, maybe an area where, again, you could be taken somewhere. You could be put in another dimension. You could do it. That's a place on the Earth where the vibrational code of the Earth meets another vibrational code of another. The vibrational code of our universe meets another vibrational code of another universe, and you just go into that universe.
Yeah.
Like
like Doctor Strange.
Yeah, it's a multiverse theory, because I base it off of like the Flash. He can vibrate his body at the rate that another universe is vibrating at. That's why he can jump to different multiverses. That may be the area where it's just the vibrational code is just the same, and you're just going to another spot.
I like that.
So, or it could just be that's where you know how Jupiter has an ongoing storm. It's that big like birthmark that Jupiter has. And it never ends. It hasn't ended ever since we started looking at Jupiter with the best ability that we can. That storm has always been there. It could be that we could have a storm that's there that just is so bad we just can't see it. So I don't know. The Bermuda Triangle is in a very interesting place. And again, it's a triangle. A lot of the mysteries on this planet are pyramid
triangles. Amen.
What's not saying that there is a pyramid there that is causing the Bermuda Triangle underneath there?
Or an active. Okay, last theory, and then and then it's probably time to jump off so they don't cancel us on the. Yeah. So what happens if that's like the? Okay, let's just go off of two of the theories we talked about, right?
Okay.
Free energy, right? And they had constant communication with each other, and all the pyramids are basically built the same. What happens if each of those pyramids had enough energy to where there was portals? They became portals to each of where these other pyramids are. So it's like teleportation in a way, but just probably slightly different. So what happens if the Bermuda Triangle is nothing but an active pyramid that they're just trying to keep under wraps because they haven't found a way? Maybe that might be like the conductor one, or the one that, you know what I'm saying?
That they just can't figure out how to simplify.
Or how to turn off. What happens if that's like the original, like the main one that powers all the other ones? And they just haven't found a way.
It could be the pyramid that's still up and running. We have pyramids all over the world that aren't doing anything. They're just sitting there. They're tourist sites. What if that's the one that is still active? There's still things going on with it. I don't think I've heard, and I got to do more research. Like, no one's taken a sub and got into the Bermuda Triangle. A submarine, and I'm not talking about RIP Ocean Gate. I'm talking about a real big submarine, like a military grade submarine, like the most advanced we have. And they have not gone to the middle of the Bermuda Triangle.
That's why I think it's a portal, man. So I think I would not be surprised.
I think there were some German U-boats during World War II that made it over there. and they went missing. But we have the military submarines now, especially America, China, Japan. They make some of the most advanced submarines, and that's like, I don't think I could do that, because submarines, like, I could fly in an F-16 and be okay. Submarines scared the shit out of me.
I would have just had an unmanned submarine with a camera on it, like a drone, and we gonna be joysticking that thing all the way through the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah, and it's just, but the thing is with me, if there is something, an energy conductor there, that won't cut it.
True, it
won't cut it. We need something that is going there, like high tech enough, but like something that they can invent. Like, I'm just spitballing here. A sub that they can connect, that they can invent, that before they hit the Bermuda Triangle, it's all high tech. And then they can shut that all off and go in.
And do manual, like a manual?
And manual, yeah. Like where it's all manual, where they have to do manual stuff to do that, to get in. Because let's face it, radar, all that stuff is going to get disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if the way that they shot torpedoes out of a U-boat back in the early 1930s, it wasn't the way that we do it now. It was all manual. Like, what if we did that, where there was a manual way that we can shoot a rocket up to show our points of where we're going? And tracking, so you could track like leaving breadcrumbs above on the surface, and we can follow where they go. If we lose connection, we know where the last point they were when they lost connection.
Hey man, we might be solving mysteries over here,
or we may get canceled.
I mean, at that point, with that segue, we have to end the show on that one. You know what I'm saying? Before they shut us off,
before they hear us,
you know what I'm saying? Just another episode of We Might Get Canceled.
Hells yeah. Hey everybody, thank you so much for listening. That was another episode of You May Get Canceled. Another little doodle, another little thing that puts a little splinter in your brain, makes you think, makes you do some research, makes you look some things up. I know I am. I know I'll be up all night just typing and figuring things out. I have to do laundry. I'm not doing that anymore. Maybe typing stuff up. Maybe doing stuff.
I might do the same thing, man. The only thing I got to do is go to practice in the morning. I might let the seniors run it tomorrow.
Boy.
Conspiracy theory.
Keep you up all night. It'll keep you up all night. All right. I am Matt. That is your man, Kyle. Thank you for listening. Again, go listen to us on wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Go find us on social, Schnabel Studios. You're going to find us on Instagram. You're going to find us on YouTube. You're going to find us on Facebook. Go subscribe. Listen to us a little more. See what you like. See what tickles your fancy in the conspiracy world. It doesn't have to be everything, but let it tickle you. Let it just a little tickle you. That's all for us tonight. Peace.